I have a problem with the word cool. To strive to do cool things, to make cool things, is something many of us all kind of aim for. But to strive to be cool, to try and be cool, is inherently uncool. Now, don't mistake people who dress fashionably as cool. That's just trendy. And trendy, I guess, is copying. A good example of trying hard to be cool would be this car. It's very fast, it's very expensive, but it's just trying so hard, whereas this one, it's just fucking cool. It's not just the way things look, their form factor, it's what they do. This watch, for example, looks fucking cool, but also works on the moon, whereas this lemon squeezer looks fucking cool, but can't squeeze lemons for shit. The definition of cool for me is to calmly and confidently do something that most people will find either annoying, absurd, or obvious. My wife's definition of cool is cooler than my definition of cool, is the ability to discern something that will transcend the era. So this is a shit building, and by golly, is it trying hard. It's the only building I've ever seen with its own sweat stains, whereas this building, I believe, in future generations will be venerated as highly as St. Paul's Cathedral. But it's not just the way things look or behave. I have met many genuinely very cool people, and whilst their public persona may be that of cool, it's not how they do things and who they are, it's what they do. And this brings me on to equipment. There is very much cool equipment. Cool synth, not so cool synth. But the thing that makes equipment cool for me is firmly in line with my definition. The ability to calmly and confidently do something that most other people would find stupid, annoying, or just obvious. Now, I've been working with a lot of guitar pedals of late. I suspect as a keyboard player, inherently uncool, using equipment that is designed for guitarists, cool, is my vain effort to strive to be cool. But I found this effects pedal that very much fits in line with the concept of calmly and confidently doing something just that little bit silly that, well, certainly makes my music, my cheesy chords, sound cool. Let's go and take a look. And today's equipment has a distinctly Canadian feel. What? Neil Young, K.D. Lang, Captain Kirk, Neo. Maybe not Neo. All I'm trying to say is Canada can be cool too. A lot of you have been asking how I'm getting the signal into my pedals. It's a simple effects loop that I've got running out of Logic into an auxiliary channel. But what I do use when I'm using pedals that don't have a line input switch like the Strymon had in the last review that I did, is I use this reamp unit by Radial from Canada. And basically what this does is de-amplify and then re-amplify. I believe that guitar pedals have a lower impedance, so basically it needs to take the edge off and then put the edge back without just adding in loads of noise and stuff like that. I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I really don't. But certainly the signal that I'm getting through this, using this, is great. So we've got our line inputs balanced either via jack or XLR in the back, and then basically we've got a send, so this is amount of signal that goes to your device or devices, and then receive, so the amount that we send back to the computer. We've got a phase inversion, and it actually can mix between dry and wet, and as I mentioned, it had two effects loops which can be simply muted here. So what are we looking at today? Well, we're looking at the Fairfield Circuitry Shallow Water. This isn't a new pedal. I think it's been out for at least 4 years, but I thought I'd just take a look at it with us composers in mind, not just putting guitars through it, but some other stuff, keyboards, pads, strings, drums, and alike. So at first look, it's a sturdy, somewhat knowingly industrial chic design, and if you play with it long enough, it does smell like you've been jangling your change all day. It doesn't take batteries, so I'm powering it off this Strymon Zoomer, which has this standard kind of pedal input. Now you can get in and adjust a couple of bits and bobs. There is a line switcher inside, so if you're predominantly synths and just want to use it on a kind of a line level effects loops, you can switch that. I'm going to keep it as a guitar level because this is going to be incorporated into a bigger array which won't be line level. And there's also a dip switch that stops this unit from boosting. But what is this unit? Well, if you go on the website, well, I would understand it if they wrote it in Serbo-Croat. Serbo-Croat even a language anymore? Do Serbians and Croatians still call it Serbo-Croat? It sounds a bit shazy, doesn't it? It sounds like a difficult language to speak. So I think I would have understood what this pedal did more had they written it in Hungarian. At first glance, if I was to describe it to friends, it's a wow and flutter pedal. It does all the yummy stuff that cassettes do without all of the annoying cassette hiss. And I thought, for nearly 300 quid, that's a heck of a lot to pay for something that we've been trying to eradicate from cassettes for decades. I've seen a lot of reviewers call this a subtle device, and I would actually call it a sensitive one. And actually, by playing with it more and more, I realised that its possibilities are much greater than simply a wow and flutter machine. So basically, it messes with time and speed. And so in order to do that, it actually has a microprocessor inside it. So this is a Canadian hybrid digital device, and I'm still maintaining it's the coolest effects pedal ever. How do I know so? It's got blue light. But more than that, let's have a listen to the piano going through it. So just the plain signal that's going to the reamp. So just straight in and out, no effects loop. Let's switch the shallow water in bypass. So absolutely no coloration to the sound. Now let's concentrate on this side of the box first. We've got our volume, our mix, which I've got up to 100%, and we've got a low pass filter. Let's switch it in. So the first thing you'll hear is that it immediately boosts the signal. This is the thing that you can switch off within the box, but I love the kind of distorting capabilities of this unit. Low pass filter. And then we can mix between the boosted signal. Now, I wouldn't quite call this a parallel signal because you will hear it kind of flange and phase. I guess it is kind of going through a timing device, so there's going to be a delay of a few milliseconds in there, I imagine. So here's the kind of wow and flutter section of the device. We've got our rate and our depth. So let's turn that up. A little bit faster. So it's almost like a random oscillator. Let's turn it right up. So somewhat interesting there, and there's a kind of a low subby sound that's introduced there. Now the damp knob kind of dampens the impact of the depth of the wave, so softens and bevels the corners, so it almost becomes imperceptible. So you're probably thinking, is that it for 300 quid? Well, I think it's very interesting. A lot of you mentioned that in my last Strymon review that I should have put some other instruments through, and I think you were absolutely right, because it actually taught me a lot more about the possibilities of this unit. So let's stick some drums through there. I'm going to take our tape wow and flutter down and just take us back to where we were. Bypassed, and then volume. So quite an extraordinary, very kind of believable distortion there. Let's have a go at the drums with all of the wow and flutter. Now, what's interesting about this is if I just take down all of these time effects and actually just put the mix up, you'll hear how there is definitely a slight delay between the two signals, which creates a kind of flangey, chorusy effect. And by messing with these time parameters, we're going to accentuate that chorus effect, along with the kind of the pitchy interest. And I guess if I reduce the depth, we're left with kind of a very interesting phasey, flangey, chorusy thing without the strange pitchy effects. Let's have a look at a guitar. And you hear that's more of a standard kind of chorus sound. Mix all the way. So for something that struck me at first when I got it out of the box as incredibly niche and a bit of a one-trick pony, I think you'll agree that we're already creating some quite interesting different sounds just by using a combination of these interesting, oddly asymmetrical oscillations with a combination of the mix and volume to increase the amount of kind of clipping and distortion. For you synth heads, let's have a listen to how that sounds as well. Let's turn the mix up to full, and I think first let's mess around with all of these interesting timing effects before we turn the mix down to create that chorusing. Really interesting stuff. What I like about the slightly broken nature of the sounds it creates is it gives cheesy chords a genuine kind of aching emotional feeling to them, slightly broken, slightly like a synth pad that's weeping slightly. And let's listen to some juicy flautandos. So let's listen to the raw signal. So a lot of you will be thinking, well, very, very mono sounding. How would you work with that in, say, a film score situation where you're predominantly in stereo or 5.1? Well,
a big cop-out for a lot of pedals is to then put this into a delay pedal and then into a reverb. But I think that would take away from all of these really interesting broken elements. So I thought what I'd do is basically do 2 passes of the piano signal, and not to create like a proxy stereo, but a true stereo. So first send it the left signal and record it, then send it the right signal and record it. So just going to get a sound I like. Right, okay, so same settings on the shallow water, but because the oscillation is chaotic and it's not clocked to anything, it will create an effect similar to 2 tape machines running independently of each other when actually synchronized on the computer. As I mentioned before, it's not a pseudo-stereoscopic effect, it's a true one because it's now receiving the right hand of the piano signal. It's just beautiful. For me, the ability to break a very perfect sounding sample is just, in a way that makes it more heartbreaking, these cheesy chords is absolutely gorgeous, and the stereo effect is something I really like. I hope you agree that it's a very musical effect, and there are so many boxes that I open that just don't really react musically to my music, and what I love about this is it's complementary. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to look at this experiment of the left and the right and record the drums, the guitar, the pad and the strings. So is this the coolest effects pedal ever? Well, if there was one reservation, it would be its form factor. It's knowingly trying to be industrial shabby chic, which for me is akin to those distressed jeans that middle-aged men buy from Gap. But it does have a blue light, and blue lights are cool. I guess we should maybe refer to my wife's definition of cool. Will it transcend the era? Will it last? Well, only time will tell. As an investment, it is expensive, and for me, investments are all about returns, and I'll report back whether or not I've had a return on that investment in what it gives back to me and to my music, my output, the sounds that I create. Thanks as always for watching. Remember, Friday live on this channel, time below, for some behind the scenes scoops and then a live tombola with an AMA. So it'd be just great great to see you there. 30th of November is the closing date for your entries to Winter Voices and that opportunity of winning one of those 5 insane prizes. So check on the links down below. Thanks as always for watching to the end. Do subscribe if you haven't done already. Ding that bell to be notified the next time I put up a film. And one of those, always much appreciated. See you next time. Great, thought that was okay.